One of this fall's breakout debut novelists isn't a romance writer or a recent graduate from the prestigious MFA program. It's Trey Gowdy, a former Republican congressman and current Fox News host, whose crime novel, The Color of Death, debuted at #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. And no, I didn't read it. Gowdy says he can't take too much credit for the book's success. That's the work of his publisher, Fox News Books. The imprint has found tremendous success capitalizing on the popularity of Fox personalities and the loyalty of its viewers. Most of its books are not expressly political, but they align with the network's conservative bent. The subject matter is often dictated by market research into what appeals to Fox's audience. Topics like faith, family, patriotism, criminal justice, and military service. Executives sometimes pair a subject with a Fox host or contributor. Then the books are launched into the world with a cascade of TV appearances, a publicity bonanza that is rare in today's media climate. Since it launched 5 years ago, all 16 Fox News book titles have become national bestsellers. With only a few releases each year, the network can give each of its authors ample airtime, particularly on shows like The Five and Fox and Friends. Critics say rival conservative publishers no longer get the same attention on Fox's airwaves. But inside the Murdoch empire, the formula works, and Fox executives plan to expand further into children's book and comedy. So what's the real message here? The Fox News Channel average audience might be 110, but make no mistake about it, the Murdochs understand corporate synergy, and that's why their book publishing company is arguably the most successful book publishing company in the world right now. Everything they do goes to the top of the bestseller list, in part because if they anoint one of their own on-air contributors, say you're going to be an author, they then give it essentially millions of dollars of free publicity on all their other shows. It's cross-promotion, weaving in and out, building their brand, building their news personalities, and making more money for their published company. Depending on your perspective, it's either brilliant or diabolical. Okay, let's dig a little deeper here. I do think this is the future of media at many, many levels. Now, I'm somebody who likes books. I read books. I try to read at least one or two real books every week. I've written half a dozen books. But I'm always in a tough situation when I have friends, colleagues, others come up to me and say, TJ, I've just written a book. I'm going to be publishing a book. And my first thought is, uh-oh, because if you're not already famous, if you're not a well-known brand on Fox News or ABC or CNN or MSNBC, if you don't have a podcast with 1 million viewers, if you don't have an email list of 1 million names, guess what? You're not going to sell any books. TJ, my book is different. My book is the best book ever. Nobody's going to hear about it. So many people I find are stuck in this mentality of it's the 1970s when only 40,000 books were published a year. And one lucky break, and you could be like Dr. Wayne Dyer, who got on The Tonight Show, and Johnny Carson promoted the book, and boom, overnight, he was famous. Overnight, he was a celebrity. Overnight, from one talk show appearance, it became a New York Times bestseller. And that fed his entire career until he died just a few years ago, with dozens and dozens and dozens of books, making collectively more than 100 million. That's still the model so many people have about publishing. It's broken. It doesn't work anymore. If you want to sell a book, you've got to find a platform. Now, really smart, savvy internet influencers, podcasters know that, and they do that. And they build a list. Someone like Scott Galloway knows, and his publishers know, the next book he publishes, even if it's blank pages, it's going to be a New York Times bestseller because he's in front of book buyers every single day in his podcast. Same with Tucker Carlson. Same with Mark Levin. It's not about ideology. It's about how do you get attention for people. Bill O'Reilly, now formerly of Fox News Channel, it created a vast publishing empire. It's something like 20 books, The Killing of Lincoln and The Killing of Jesus. And he got this formula, and he knew he could slap his name on anything. And there are varying accounts about how much he really wrote of any of these books versus his ghostwriter. But let's, for the sake of argument, say he did write some of it. He knew that because he was in front of people every single night on Fox, because he was in front of people with his newsletter, because he was in front of millions with his website, he could sell any book. I'm frankly surprised that CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times don't actively have larger and they may even have publishing imprints, but if they do, they're inconsequential. What Fox does now, which is shrewd, they tell their paid contributors, you want to be on our airways, you want a paycheck from us on a regular basis. Okay, but you have to give us the next book you write a first look. That means the publisher at the Fox book imprint can look at a book first and decide if I want to publish it. Only if they turn it down can they then go to another network. Now, normally you might say, well, that seems unfair to the authors. Well, every single book they publish becomes a New York Times bestseller. So it works out pretty well for their on-air staff. I think this is the future. And we're already seeing it with countless bloggers across the spectrum, podcasters. I'm dating myself now. But you can look across the spectrum. On the right side, whether it is Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, certainly Rush Limbaugh made a fortune from his books, the way things ought to be, I believe was one of his titles. And I did read his books. And those were ghostwritten by John Fund of the Wall Street Journal. That's pretty well documented. But you need a big brand to get in front of. And institutions like Fox News are a brand. The personalities who are on every day become a brand. But it can happen for you and me as well. And again, there's so many people in politics, especially, who do this across the political spectrum. Look, it's like someone like David Pakman, who is known as a liberal democratic YouTuber and podcaster, wrote a book, pretty good book, I've read it, and became a bestseller. Look at Michael Tyler Cohen, another liberal democratic podcast, wrote a book, I've read it, and became a bestseller. And I also, by the way, I read conservative pundits' books going all the way back to God and Man at Yale by William F. Buckley. So I try to follow best-selling books talking about culture all across the spectrum so I can give you a better perspective on it and just give myself a better sense of what's going on in the world too. A few more facts about this. Dana Perino's book featured a mariachi band. It sold 100,000 copies. Joey Jones' Behind the Badge hit #1 with a Fox push. Shannon Bream's Women of the Bible Speak became a franchise. Now, HarperCollins is also owned by News Corp, so it's all a part of the same family. And they are doing the distribution. HarperCollins, of course, a famed book publishing company that has connections with everyone in the world. But here's the thing, a lot of other conservative publishers are not happy about this. The Regnerys of the world are like, we used to be able to get all our people on Fox and Friends, and now we can't. I can tell you, I've heard from many talk show producers over the last decade who say, we don't want authors. If it's not somebody really famous, nobody cares. So if you want to sell your book, here's my communication skills advice to you and my personal development advice to you. If you want to write a book and sell a book, don't do it until you have built a community and an audience. And that these days probably means you need to start a daily or a weekly YouTube channel. You need to start a podcast. You need to start a newsletter. You need to start gathering email lists. You need to figure out how can your ideas and your face and your name, regardless of whether you have a big ego or not, get in front of 1 million or more people a month. Sadly, I think that's the only way to sell books. Or there's always going to be someone who's going to win the lottery. Somebody is just going to be a hermit, write a perfect novel, mail it off. It somehow gets accepted, somehow gets great reviews. But that's like saying, I'm not going to plan for my financial future. I'm not going to save any money. I'm just going to buy a lottery ticket. Lottery ticket is not a safe, conservative, guaranteed way of generating wealth for your long term. And simply focusing on writing a book isn't either. You need a platform. Now, you don't have to use a ghostwriter like people I'm talking about do. You can write your own book, but you need to first communicate with people in a way that's easier than buying a book. Buying a book is a big commitment. You got to pull out money, pull out your credit card, sit for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours with someone's ideas, and you don't know them yet. It's kind of like asking people to get married on the first date. It's much easier to ask someone to maybe watch a TikTok video of yours, or a Facebook video, or a longer form YouTube video. It's a lot easier to get them to maybe listen to your podcast for 6 months. And then you can go steady and they can buy a book of yours. I want you to think of it that way, not as some big, horrible travesty of the modern world.